Hey there, everybody. Sorry about the late starting time here. I'm Ryan. I'm here at the Mysterious Bookshop, and we are so thrilled to be hosting Eli Cranor, whose debut novel, Don't Know Tough, is officially available at the Mysterious Bookshop. We have signed copies here. And Eli, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah,
We're thrilled to have you. Of course, we will be having Peter Lovesey join us in a little bit. With some time differences and being on different continents, we're being a little patient here. But I'm so eager to chat with you for a little bit because, as I mentioned before we got started, I am a huge fan of Don't Know Tough. Such a big fan that we made sure to make it our April pick for our first Mystery Crime Club. The book, comparisons, the line that jumped out to me was sort of Friday Night Lights meets gritty Southern noir. Is that what you envisioned when you were writing? You come from a football background, you've played yourself, you've coached. So was this a world that you knew that you'd always kind of write about, or did an idea just kind of bing come to you?
Yeah, man. Well, and first off, thanks so much for the book club pick. Like your guys' books, like all those books arrived at my house, like before anything else. So like before the author copies, before anything else, and like we got a great picture. Like I'm out like on our back deck signing, like, or I've got them all stacked up around me. My wife, and so that was the most epic way to have like a opening. A book opening or whatever, and I really appreciate that. It was surreal.
The pleasure's all ours. It's all ours.
Yeah. But no, to answer your question, so I cut my teeth on like true grit lit, like Larry Brown, Harry Crews. I mean, even before that, Flannery O'Connor, like the real like Southern literature. I didn't really know. I wasn't ever really much of like a crime or mystery or thriller reader, growing up, or coming up. It was always that sort of stuff. So what I did was when I got out of coaching, I was looking for something to do, something to, and I was an English lit major. I wrote a lot in college, tried to do, but then like once I got into coaching, I just didn't have time. And so when I got out of coaching, I went back to it real heavy, like went back to writing like on a, like almost like a football coach's writing regimen, like had like this like daily word count and crazy stuff I was doing. And this story, the very first chapter was a short story. And I wrote the whole thing like during a lunch break, and I'm actually in my classroom now. Like I'm at school now, right? We just got the kids out of here. So it timed up perfect. And I wrote it during a lunch tied into a prep, and I was actually still coaching at that time. I'd taken off from being the head coach, and I was coaching the offensive line for my last year. And I just had that first line come to me, still feel the burn on my neck. Told coach it was a ringworm this morning when he picked me up. And the rest, like I nailed the whole, it's about 1,500 words, in that first bit. It was just like, it just came. And sent that off, and it won a contest at the Greensboro Review out there in North Carolina. And that was kind of the first success, that I had like with short stories or anything like that. Like it was the first. And so I thought, well, hell, I bet somebody actually wants to read this, So that was probably like back in 2017.
Okay.
And from there, that's when, and I wrote the book still not really knowing, thinking like mystery, thriller, none of that stuff. It was kind of afterwards. It was like as I was trying to sell it, or get an agent for it. I had an agent at one point and lost an agent and had different people and, who came in to help, and I really appreciate it because I really think it through all of that, I had somebody say, how would this work as a mystery? It's not traditional, like mystery. So that's kind of the long answer.
Yeah. And what did you, as I'm sure you and Peter will talk about, you won the Peter Lovesey first crime novel contest. So talk about what was that process like for you? Either submitting it, or did someone reach out to you, or how did you go about thinking Don't Know Tough should at least be in consideration of this?
It's crazy, man. So like through all of that time, I just kept writing, and I had other manuscripts, but like I was a head football coach in many ways, like similar to this guy, like Trent.
Right.
And I got the job when I was really young. I got it when I was 26. And in like these parts, like down in Arkansas, I mean, it's like being the mayor mixed with being the sheriff, mixed with, and I just wasn't ready. I wasn't ready at all. I got the job because of my playing experience. And so, what happened after that was I wrote this book, and then I tried querying it. I had agents. I ended up getting like it's over 200 agent rejections. And I had just about given up on this book, but a good buddy of mine who's in Mississippi, so about as close. I mean, there's a little bit of a literary scene here in Arkansas, but nothing like over like in Oxford, Mississippi.
Got it.
They got Square Books, and they've got there's more authors right there in that town.
Right. Yeah.
Than I know in the whole state of Arkansas. And it was William Boyle. And I had just about given up on this book. Had been rejected by everybody, and I finally like did the thing you're never supposed to do. And I'll just send him an email. I was like, hey man, you want to read this, like just the Word doc. And luckily he did. He wanted to read it. And it was a couple of months, and he read it and he loved it. And I wasn't querying it at the time. And I think he had a couple of notes,
Wow.
And then I did the same thing with Ace Atkins, because it was like once Bill said he liked it, I reached out to the next guy.
Speaking of Oxford, Mississippi.
Yeah, I stayed right in the Oxford thing, and so Ace, and so they were both kind enough to blurb it.
Yes,
like when it was even when it was a Word doc, so it was
I hear you.
just a manuscript. And what I did with that was then I started querying with those two blurbs at the top of like the query letter. And that was right at the end of, it was right at the beginning, January of like 2020. And so I had those blurbs, I had those, and within like a week, I had like 30 full manuscript requests. So I had like 30 agents wanting to read the whole book, excited about it. And, it takes them a month or two to get into this. And then by about March of 2020, the world exploded. And I don't know. I mean, a lot of them said, like, we have no idea what publishing is going to look like. We're not going to take on a debut author. And I was just like I didn't know. And then like a couple of months later, William Boyle sends me the link to the Soho contest. And he's like, hey man, I think you should try this.
Wow.
And I just like, on a query letter, I used to make sure everything was exactly where it should have been. And with this, I remember just like sending it off, like just attach the manuscript, didn't think anything about it. And then boom, it was like, as soon as it happened, and it just blew me away. Like at the time, I mean, I would say I was like barely knew of like Peter, and his work and his books. And so like when they're like, because you get this original phone call that says like it's down to 3, like you're in like the finalist, and we're sending it to Peter to like choose. And I remember it was, like one of the books was like an international thriller, and I'm thinking like, why is this dude gonna pick like this Arkansas high school gritty noir, And he did. And what I came to find out, like the similarities between his story and mine are just like so serendipitous. It's ridiculous. Like, so he won a contest to get Wobbled to Death, his first novel published. When he was doing that, he was a teacher. He was a teacher, at like I don't know if it was a public school over there or not. He was a huge sports fanatic, so like his first book, Wobbled to Death, was a sports centric mystery around long distance walking competition. And then to top it all off, when that book came out, he was 34 years old, which I just turned 34.
Wow.
And so
wow.
It was like,
it does feel like from the universe.
The stars align.
Right. You say that you hadn't really, well, you know what? I think I have a surprise for everybody here. Speak of the devil. Who we have here?
Am I late for this?
No, No, you're right on time. Absolutely. All right. Eli, Peter, I want you two to be able to have an excellent conversation. We were just talking about you, Peter. Eli was just saying how his story and yours about getting that first book published was very similar. We said it feels like the universe tried to make sure this happened. And so I will let you two carry on that conversation. Nobody wants to see my face. And I'll be back in a little bit, but enjoy the conversation. Catch up, both of you, and I'll be back in a little bit. Enjoy.
Well, hello, Eli.
Hi, Peter.
I appear to have messed up a bit. I thought I had another 3/4 of an hour before.
Yeah, I thought maybe the time
we started.
Yeah. Yeah, I was afraid the time change and then the time zones. There was a lot of time issues that definitely I was watching too.
Oh, let me just center myself a little bit more. So, and make sure you can see me. That's a little better. That's a little better. Eli, I wanted to congratulate you first on such a marvelous send-off for the book. It's terrific. I saw a wonderful review in the New York Times, and great mentions in the I think the Los Angeles Times, picking it out as one of the best crime novels of the winter, and something else in USA Today, picking it out as one of the best books of the week, of the hot books, I think was the word they used, of the week. So that's really exciting. I even made a note of Sarah, worth reading out. Sarah Weinman's review. Don't Know Tough is unmistakably noir in the Southern tradition, a cauldron of terrible choices and even more terrible outcomes. There is a raw ferocity to Cranor's prose, perfectly in keeping with the novel's examination of curdling masculinity. Don't Know Tough is so far one of the best debuts of 2022. I mean, you don't get better than that. You really don't. It's terrific. Yeah. I'm so excited because I love the book when I read it. It was, of course, my choice from all the entries for the crime novel contest, the first crime novel contest, which was held to celebrate my first crime novel, which won a contest over 50 years ago now, back in, the Soho, our wonderful publisher, gave me really the choice of having a party or something else. And I said, well, it would be so much nicer if we could have a competition. And somebody else was selected to be a first crime novelist, just as I was, with the chance of going on to have a big career. And when I read yours, it was clearly the winner. So I was very excited about it. My book, funnily enough, Wobble to Death, was a sports book too, except that it was about long distance running, and it was in Victorian times. But it's odd that we should both have chosen the sporting theme as the background of this first novel, because you don't always think of sports as a subject for mystery novels. Anyway, how did you feel about winning the competition?
It's well, I mean, what you just said, and when I heard that, like at the gala thing that we had, the fact that you made that choice to make a competition instead of just having a party or whatever, that's something that just has always blown me away. And then what you mentioned there, like with us, there's more similarities, and that's what I was just telling Ryan is if I'm not mistaken, when Wobble to Death was published, you were 34.
I suppose I was just round about that. Yeah, round about that age. Yeah.
And I just turned 34, and we were both teachers. Both of us were teaching I'm actually in my classroom Right, we got the kids just out of here just in time for me to get logged on. Yeah. So I mean, I just it's all just been surreal. That's the only way to put it. Is it's all just everything, even like that. Everything from the moment that I heard that it was happening to like getting that review in the Times. It is all just none of it still seems real.
Oh yes. I better say first of all that it was a good thing that I chose the contest rather than the party, because when the time for the party would have come round, we had COVID and we couldn't possibly have had a party. So I got a virtual gala as well, and that was really nice. So I was doubly pleased. Now you've been on tour, I gather, with publicising the book. I expect you've been to some of the wonderful bookstores that I've visited on previous tours. Have they given you a good time all the way along?
Oh, it's been a blast. So we really last week, we had this weird thing where the book was actually supposed to come out on March 8th. And then we had the supply chain something to do with glue and it ended up working out really cool because we already had all these events set up. And we got to honor them, like we got to get early dispensation, like get them books. And so, yeah, all last week I was in like Oxford, Mississippi at Square Books. I was in Jackson, Mississippi at Lemuria Books. I was in Greenwood and Memphis. In my hometown, we had a little send-off. And so it's been kind of the coolest thing because this coming Saturday, we start hitting the road again to like Little Rock and Nashville, Tennessee, and a bunch of stops in North Carolina, ending at McIntyre's, where I'll be in conversation with the Juliet Grains.
Oh, yes. My editor too.
Yeah.
Yes, you'll have a great time.
Yeah.
With her, but yes, that's really good. I don't think I've been to the areas you've been to mainly. They took me to Texas.
Yeah.
And let's see, they took me to Arizona. Have you been to the bookstores there?
No.
To the book? No. Well, I hope you'll get there because they certainly gave me a wonderful time. In fact, I'm sure you've been given a great reception wherever you've gone, and it'd be rather good if you managed to get to the mysterious bookshop in New York who are hosting this event.
Yeah. Oh, is there any? Sorry. Oh, well, I was just telling Ryan, I've never been to New York City, and I've been a fan of the Bookshop, of Mysterious for a long time. I've watched them from afar and always thought it looked like the coolest place with all those high shelves. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I hope you get there pretty soon because I think my first visit was in 1978 when that was my first visit to America. And there was a conference, a big conference, and we were hosted there by Otto, who's still the owner of the Mysterious Bookshop, Otto Penzler, and that started for me a great friendship with Otto, and an enduring love of his bookstall, which is marvelous, and he's got a sort of holy of holies where his wonderful collection of books is, and if you're privileged, if you ask him nicely, you might be able to see that as well as the books that are on sale on the shelves.
Yeah.
But let's have a word about the book itself and how it came to be written. Would you like to say something about that? I gather that it was a prize-winning short story that in its first form.
Yeah.
Or did it have a beginning even before that?
No, I was in my last year coaching, Peter. I had stepped down as the head coach and I'd moved to another small town in Arkansas called Morrilton, and I was coaching the offensive line for the Morrilton Devil Dogs. And I was teaching English. And so I had a lunch and a prep period that gave me like an hour and a half break in the middle of the day. And I wrote that short story all in at least the first draft of it. I wrote it in that first setting, or in that one sitting. And it was,
Wow.
yeah, it was one of those really, like lift your fingers up and feel like, you're getting zapped by the writing gods or something. But all that had come from, it was my 5th year of coaching, and just seeing a lot of the stuff that's in the book. It's one thing to be a teacher, and it's another thing to be a coach in regard to just how close you get to your students or athletes. And I had just gotten really close to a bunch. I was in South Arkansas for 2 years, and then we're up in like northwest-ish area of Arkansas. So I'd seen a lot, and all of that just kind of came rushing out in that one setting. And yeah, it won the Greensboro Review prize for fiction that year. And that's when I was like, well, I better see what I can do with this.
Yes.
And make the rest into a book.
And it's the short story is really the first chapter of Don't Know Tough, the novel.
Yeah. Right. Yes, sir. Yeah, that's it.
And you caught the voice of Billy, the main protagonist of the book, just beautifully. It just sort of came to you, did it? You could hear it in your head and wrote it down. And it's getting a voice that's so important.
Yeah, and Billy's voice is a strange voice. I don't know that I've ever really seen it like portrayed on the page, or even much like on the screen. And what it is, he's described as a sawed off white boy with tree trunk thighs. And like where I teach, I'm in an alternative classroom setting. So that means like we're an offshoot of the Russellville School District, where we get 60 or so kids that have got problems, or like issues with behavior or problems with things, like different things that would set them outside of the regular classroom setting. And Billy's voice, from the football fields I was on to like the classroom, it's this really strange thing where it's not just a true Southern accent. Like a lot of the kids that I, I'm teaching here, or like they listen to hip hop, and they have a lot of, different cultural influences. And so that was something I really wanted to try and catch. And I was able to do the audio book. I was able to record the audio book, narrate the audio book myself. And yeah, I was super thankful to Soho for that one, because we had to fight like hell to let me narrate it, because there's a lot of people who do, voice acting for a profession. So we had to send in a bunch of audio samples, and I had to send in some doing Billy's voice and then some doing, the third person chapters. But I finally got to do it because I couldn't imagine. What I was so afraid of was, them hiring some dude from Texas to try and do like Billy's accent, and it would have thrown it, it would have thrown the whole thing off. Yeah, it could have messed up. So, but it was a grueling process, but I'm really glad I did it.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, are you going to give us a treat and give us a little reading?
Sure.
Have you got the book with you?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
I've got it right. Yep.
Great. So have I.
Nice. We need to get you the real copy, Peter.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is just the opening. This is the whole opening first scene. It's just like a page and a half. And so
brilliant.
this is where this is where you meet Billy. So chapter 1. Still feel the burn on my neck. I told Coach it was a ringworm this morning when he picked me up, but it ain't. It a cigarette, or at least what a lit cigarette do when it's stuck in your neck. I just stared at him when he did it. No way I was gonna let him see me hurt. No way. Bit a hole through the side of my cheek, swallowed blood, and just stared at him. Tasted blood all day. Tasted while I sat in Miss Miller's class. Woke up in algebra tasting it. Drank milk from a cardboard box at lunch, and still I tasted it. But now at 8th period football, Coach already got the boys lined up on either side of the 50. A crease in between, a small space for running and tackling, for pain. This my favorite drill. I just been standing back here watching the other boys go at it, the sound of pads popping like sheet metal flapping in a storm. Who on deck? Hollered Bull. Bull ain't the head coach. Bull coached the defense. He as mean as they come. I tongued the hole in my cheek, fingered the cigarette burn on my neck, and stepped into the crease. Coach handed me the ball and smiled. He know what kind of power I got. Senior year too, they got that sophomore linebacker lined up across from me, the one with the rich daddy always paying for everything. Coach blow his whistle. I can see him smiling as he stuck that hot tip in my neck, smiling when he put little brother out in the pen. I gripped the ball tight, ducked my head, and run at sophomore linebacker, hoping to kill him. When we hit, there's real lightning. Thunder explode across the field. The back of sophomore linebacker head, the first thing to hit the ground, arms out like Jesus on the cross. The other boys cheer. Coach blow his whistle, and already the linebacker getting up like I ain't nothing, shaking his head, laughing and standing again, disrespecting me. This time I spear him with the top of my helmet, dive and go head to head. There's a cracking sound, not thunder, not lightning, and damn sure not sheet metal. It's the sound of my heart breaking, the sound of violence pouring out. Coach blow his whistle like somebody drowning. Sophomore linebacker scream because he don't know what's on him. This boy a poser. He don't know tough, don't know nothing. Bet his mama woke him up this morning with some milk and cookies. I try to bite his cheek off, but the face mask, the mouthpiece, I see only red, then black, a cigarette, a dog pen.
I must get the audio book, I think.
Thanks,
I want
Peter.
to hear some more. I'm sure anybody who's watching this is like to hear the rest. I'd like to hear, your voice when you're reading the parts that involve the coach as well, Trent Powers. But was Billy drawn to some extent from your own experiences, or as a player, as well as a coach?
That's such a good question, Peter. And like as I was out on the road, I had so many people, like they know I'm a coach and they know as a player. So that's one of the biggest questions is, like, are you the coach? And who is Billy? And the best answer I had was like, man, I'm every one of them. Like I'm the Billy's brother. I'm the principal. Like they're parts of me. Like they came from my head. But to be more specific, Billy is a conglomerate. He's a concoction of just the worst of the worst situations that I saw. And then when I played football, I was a quarterback, but my dad never really had much of a playing career. He was his story that he always tells was he was like an undersized offensive lineman. And even on senior night, like the night where everybody, like all the seniors especially get in the game, like his coach never put him in the game. And so from the time I was like 3, he had a ball in my hand, it was like, I was, he was going to make me, become something to be a player of some sort. And so I can remember my first season, and he didn't know I'd be a quarterback. Like he didn't know anything about any of that stuff, but he just knew I was going to be mean. He knew that I was going to be like the hardest hitter and the toughest, like he could, So I remember we had our little helmets on. We're in 3rd grade. We're like 9 years old. And everybody puts a strip of tape across their forehead, and the coaches write, or across the top of their helmet. And the coaches write their names like across, so they know who all these little 3rd graders are running around. And Dad wrote Mad Dog across the top of my name. You know, like not my name. He wrote Mad Dog. You know, and so I think that's a good answer to your question of like some of this, especially the anger. You know, like this idea that Billy's, and I had a great childhood. You know, but I thought that worked well for the story. You know, this taking this anger, this idea of masculinity, and then putting it into a player, you know, who's trying to prove so much when he's out on that field. Yeah, there's parts of me all over that.
And equally, I'm sure that the character of the coach Trent is drawn very much from your own experiences. He's from California. He's coming to Arkansas to coach a team, and he hasn't had much success in California. And I gather that your own coaching experience, you've said, I've seen a little video that you did when you said really that you were too young to take on the job of a high school coach. When you did, and Trent really is he's a failure, isn't he, as a coach? He's had to leave California because he wasn't a success, and he hopes to, well, his wife in particular, Marley, hopes that he will make a big success of it here, and then they can go back to California because he doesn't have she doesn't have a very hard of life in Arkansas.
No.
Is that a fair summary?
Yeah. And like playing off of that whole idea of where all that came from. Like I went to school in South Florida, down in Boca Raton, right up north of Miami for my first year in college for football. And then I played in Sweden for a year. And so both of those experiences like got me out of Arkansas. And, you know, like I'll remember being in South Florida and like telling somebody I'm from Arkansas and then being like, y'all wear shoes over there? You know, and like they're dead serious, you know, like they think we're so like hillbilly and redneck, you know, that like did we really wear shoes? Like, did we have cars or we just ride horses? And to add on top of that, you know, when I was the head coach, I brought a guy with me who played with me in Sweden, an American, and he was from California. So for the first year I was the head coach, one of my assistants was a guy from California. And so that was all of that. You get to see Arkansas, like my home state, you know, through these different lenses. And that's what I really wanted to play, you know, but in terms of Trent, yeah, like when I was the head coach, we went 1-19. We won one game in 2 years. And I mean, I lost more games in those 2 seasons than I had like in my whole career as a player. You know, like I had come in there as a successful quarterback, you know, in high school, college, or and overseas, and then we just couldn't do it. You know, like we just couldn't get it done. And so it was that weight, you know, of feeling like in a small town, you know, it's such a big deal, and we just couldn't get it done. And so. Yeah, like you bring all that together, and that's where, you know, Trent and Marley, and that's where those characters were birthed from.
Yeah, and we mustn't give the impression that this is simply a book about football, because it isn't. Football is a relatively small element in fact, I don't think. I imagined when I started the book that this is an underprivileged kid. And by the end of the book, we're going to be dealing with a big match that when he's going to triumph and everybody will be delighted and he emerges as a hero, fulfilled and a man. But it isn't that. I'm not going to give away anything. That would be a spoiler. But at the same time, it's fair to say that the book is very much about the pull of families, isn't it? And people. And the characters, it works as a general novel as well as a mystery novel. There's a big mystery element in it. There's a killing in it, which isn't giving away too much, but you expect that in a mystery. But it's much more than that. I think it could work as a so-called mainstream novel, couldn't it?
Yeah, it really. I mean, I didn't really cut my teeth on crime or mystery or anything like that. You know, when I was first starting out, I was much more rooted in like Southern literature, Flannery O'Connor or Faulkner, then up to like Larry Brown and Harry Crews and
Oh yeah.
William Gay and all of those, Ron Rash. These like all of those guys. And so the crime thing kind of came about, as agents started looking, and we're trying to fit it, like into. I mean, it always did have the dead body, but yeah, I think you're right. But then I will say, like once I found the crime, genre and like begin just, it was like I had, baby teeth, and I was able to like sharpen them all over again, and was learning so much that it's all I really want to do. I've had a blast, diving into all different facets of crime, thrillers, mysteries, and it really felt like, I found a good spot for what I wanted to do.
Yeah, you did. I believe you said somewhere that Elmore Leonard is one of your favorite writers.
So when I found him, Peter, I read all 42. Like it was like a year. I read even into the westerns, and now I've read some of them again. But I just, for a while, I mean, my wife's a big reader, and she'd read some great, thing that was coming out on the bestseller list or something, and she'd like, "You've got to read this," and I would try, and it wasn't that book was any good. It was just that I wanted to go find another Elmore Leonard book, and I just loved it. It's just the voice, going from like Billy's voice and watching Dutch do all those different voices. I can't. It's amazing.
Oh yes. His dialogue is just out of this world. It really is quite brilliant. I've read a lot of them, and I met him a few times and signed books with him and things like that. And it was a great privilege, and he was a great guy. Really wonderful company.
Yeah.
So I was pleased that he was a hero of yours as well.
Yeah.
Where do you do your writing? Do you do that? You said you did some when you were at school there in the lunch break. I mean, do you? I mean, I'm sitting in my study here, and this is where I do it at a computer. I started on the kitchen table with a pencil and a pad of paper, and graduated gradually towards a typewriter, and I had to learn to type, and then my wife would type them up properly for me. But I gradually got into the world of electric typewriters, electronic typewriters, word processors. You can see how I've come right through this technology as I've. What's your way of writing a book? Do you hand first, or does it go straight onto the whatever it is you use, your laptop or your computer?
Yeah, so I've got a little office. We live out on Lake Dardanelle, which, if you've read True Grit by Charles Portis, it overlooks like Yell County and Dardanelle and Mount Nebo, which is all like, that's where Matty Ross is from. So it's a really cool view, and we really love it. And I've got like our basement is unfinished. So I really have like a dungeon, down there of just, I have like a room that's just like 2x4s that's kind of, framed out, and I've got all my stuff in there. But Peter, I've tried everything. And what I've about come to is like, if I'm going to write a short story, I'm going to write it on a pen and a pad. And I have a Pilot V7. I always use Pilot V7 pens because that's what Elmore Leonard swore by, or I found that in an interview somewhere. Right. And I also found some unlined yellow legal pads. So actual like yellow pad. And that was another Elmore Leonard thing. Like he didn't want the lines. It was something from like his advertising days, So if I'm going to write a short story, I still go to the pad. And even if I'm going to write like a higher minded, essay or something, I'll always compose on a pad. But for novels, and I've written novels by hand and composed them into the computer like at night, like transcribed them into the computer at night. I think I've written 2, and they were fine, but they weren't like the best novels and so the juice just wasn't worth the squeeze, but for something that's smaller, like that, I do find, the pad and the pen kind of helps it get a little more. You can do more, or at least I can do more with the language like that. But if I'm composing, like I'm drafting a novel now, I just I get up at 5 before. I've got 2 kids and a day job, and so I get the coffee going and watch the sun come up over the lake and try to get a minimum of 1,000 words if I'm in a draft, and just try and do that every day.
Oh, that's the way to go for it. You have to work simply every day. Are you an outliner, or are you a sort of kind of seat of the pants writer?
Yeah, I didn't So Don't Know Tough was the 4th manuscript I completed. And then like by the time, like it was like 5 years, before this contest, I had 10 manuscripts done by the time it all hit. And I've done it just about every way, like for Don't Know Tough, I didn't outline. I was just learning, but now what I do is I have these huge, like the big, long, like 14-inch yellow legal pads. And I'll usually try and fill like at least one of those up with just kind of like a rough, like, like brainstorm, before I ever start writing, like, just like, I'm not trying to find like an exact outline per se, but I'm trying to just flesh as much. And then like, once I fill that first one up, then I'll try and kind of find the voice and work my way into the story. And so I'll keep more of those as I'm writing. Like I'll keep making notes, and then usually I do like to have an idea about the end. But it all changes. That's what I've done, like a hard and fast outline. And then I've gotten, 30 or 40,000 words in, and I've changed it. I've changed it at different times. But what do you do? What do you do, Peter? I want to know what you do.
When I started it, I was outlining. I would write a synopsis of the whole thing, chapter by chapter. That was the way Wobble to Death was written. Partly because I was like you. I was writing in the evenings and at weekends and early in the morning if I could. And so I had to make sure that my time was used to the maximum, words, because I'm a very slow writer, much slower than you. I admire you if you could do 1,000 words a day. That's something. I do about 250, I think, 250 to 300 maybe. It can speed up a little as I'm getting towards the end of a novel, but certainly early on, I find that every word is a struggle. And I don't work in drafts. I like to get the thing settled as I'm writing, so that by the time I finish chapter 1, that will be chapter 1 of the book. It's unusual. I know I've been on panels with many other writers, and I'd like to get the whole thing down in a draft and then revise and then do a second and a third draft. I don't think I can do that. I've always felt that I want to see the thing develop as it will be on the printed page. So that's my method. It's slow, but it gets me there, and I've managed to write a book a year for most of the years of my life, most of the years of my writing life, I should say.
Yeah. And how long does it take you? How long, like from when you start a book, how long is that process?
Yeah, well, I'll spend some thinking time before I even start chapter 1, and that could be a few weeks, and I may jot a few things down now. But I don't outline in the way I used to. I find that I can carry a lot in my head, and and very often better ideas, as you said, come along as you're doing it. You may have a plan in your mind, but suddenly you think, oh, wouldn't it be so much better if he did this and that, and if she arrived here, and all that sort of thing can influence you. So I'm happier now, just letting it flow. But it doesn't flow. It's a struggle, Eli. It really is.
And how long?
I envy people.
How long are you working, like, on, like, you know, I mean, as a novelist, like, as that being your job, like, how do you structure your hours throughout a day?
I'm sort of retired, and I gave up the teaching job in 1975, 5 years after. There's something for you to aim at. 5 years after I wobbled to death, I gave up the teaching job and told the principal what to do with the job, basically. and they gave me a nice party, and I enjoyed that very much. And since then, I've been making my career as a writer, you know, with the support of my wife Jax, who is a wonderful support, and encouraged me to take this big gamble, because it was a gamble, and I was giving up a good job and a pension as well. The reason I'm probably writing at my age now is that I don't have a very good pension, so I need to sort of keep ourselves in the style to which we're accustomed. I work quite a few hours in the day. I'll get up at 5:30 and write until breakfast time, which for me is probably about 8 o'clock, 7:30, 8 o'clock. So I get an hour, perhaps a couple of hours in then, and then I need a bit of a break. And I'm sort of looking after my wife as well, who is disabled. So there's quite a lot of household stuff to do. And then I like a coffee. And then mid-morning, I'll get down to it again by 11, I hope, and work through and have a fairly quick lunch and work on and off through the rest of the day. But as you get older, you find that you can't work for sustained periods. When I was a younger man, I could work for 3 hours, 4 hours, and hardly notice. But these days, no, I find that I nod off if I'm going for more than an hour and a half.
Sorry, I didn't mean to just jump right back in there. I want to thank you both. We have about a few minutes left until it's 5 o'clock, and so I just wanted to come by to help wrap things up. And Eli, Peter, I want to thank you both on behalf of the Mysterious Bookshop and Otto Penzler, of course, who is close by. Thank you both so much for participating. And as Peter mentioned, Eli, you are always welcome at the store. Both of you are. And if you do ask nicely, Otto would be more than willing to show you some of his rare books outside of his office. So otherwise, we have so many copies of signed copies of Don't Know Tough to put in the hands of readers. It is a book you don't want to miss. If William Boyle and Steph Chaw and Alex Segura and Mike Corita and S.A. Cosby and Ace Atkins aren't enough, and Peter Lovesey aren't enough to sell you on why this is a book that you should read, I don't know what else will. So make sure you order a copy or come pick up one up at the store. And Eli, really looking forward to meeting you in person here at the bookshop, and keep us posted on Ozark Dogs. We'd love to have you here to promote that as well. So
thanks so much, Ryan, and especially again for the book of the month, and
absolutely
all those books that showed up on my doorstep, and that was a hell of a thing. And Peter, I can't tell you how much that you mean for this. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. And just for collectors out there, if you can buy a book by a first novelist like Eli, who's on the brink of a big career, it's a very good investment. It really is. Otto would tell you that.
He certainly would. Absolutely. All right. Thank you, gentlemen, both so much. take good care. We will see both of you again very soon, I'm sure. And yeah, order your copy of Don't Know Tough today. Thank you both so much. Congratulations, Eli. Thank you,
you.
Peter.
Thank you, Eli.
Thanks, Peter.
Bye-bye.
Take good care.